आलोलचन्द्रकलसद्वनमाल्यवंशी रत्नाङ्गदं प्रणयकेलिकलाविलासम् श्यामं त्रिभङ्गललितं नियतप्रकाशम् गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। अङ्गानि यस्य सकलेन्द्रियवृत्तिमन्ति पश्यन्ति पान्ति कलयन्ति चिरं जगन्ति आनन्दचिन्मयसदुज्ज्वलविग्रहस्य गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। अद्वैतमच्युतमनादिमनन्तरूपम् आद्यं पुराणपुरुषं नवयौवनं च वेदेषु दुर्लभमदुर्लभमात्मभक्तौ गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। पन्थास्तु कोटिशतवत्सरसम्प्रगम्यो वायोरथापि मनसो मुनिपुङ्गवानां सोऽप्यस्ति यत्प्रपदसिम्न्यविचिन्त्य तत्त्वे गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। एकोऽप्यसौ रचयितुं जगदण्डकोटिं गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। यद्भावभावितधियो मनुजस्तथैव सम्प्राप्य रूपमहिमासनयानभूषा सुप्तैर्यमेव निगमः प्रतिथैस्तुवन्ति गोविन्दमादिपुरुषं तमहं भजामि। आनन्दचिन्मयरसप्रतिभाविताभि
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Vihari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Gopijana Balabha Girivardhari Girivardhari Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jasodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatara Satasri Srimadis Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Shri Shri Radhani Madhava Ki Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guruji Gauranga. Continuing with Śrī Brahma-Samhita, we'll start with a little review. Yesterday evening we discussed verses 3 and 4, where 2 was identifying the subject matter as the abode of Krishna. The introduction is Krishna, then the abode of Krishna. And as you see in the image on the screen here, that central whorl, the yellow portion in the middle of the lotus flower, is the abode of Krishna. And when we say Krishna, we mean Radha Krishna, the abode of Radha Krishna. Then the concept of a yantra was introduced. Yantra meaning a machine. Yantra rudhani mayaya. So in this case, this yantra is a depiction. Tamal Krishna Maharaj would call it a mystic diagram. The abode of Krishna, depicted in a two-dimensional presentation. And we are to understand, this is review, but that yantra is like a deity, or as we see the deity as non-different than Krishna, as the name of Krishna is non-different than Krishna, the yantra is non-different than Krishna. It's a diagram, but it's non-different than Krishna. Worshipable. Worshipable specifically because the mantra is inscribed therein. And the mantra, we heard yesterday, is non-different than Krishna. Just as the name of Krishna is non-different than Krishna. So the mantra makes the yantra worshipable. The abode of Krishna is as worshipable as is Krishna. worshipable. We heard yesterday, in the center, you see Radha Krishna in the center, and Krishna was likened to a diamond. And we've heard that the form of Krishna is eternal. The form of Krishna is Satchit Ananda, full of eternity, knowledge and bliss, no touch of any material contamination, Vishuddha Sattva, absolutely, completely pure. Bhaktisiddhanta's language described Krishna as acme of entity, the topmost. We also heard topmost form. There is no form superior to Krishna. He is the superlatively perfect form of the Supreme Lord. And it also specifically stated that He is the repose or the shelter or the basis and support of all potencies. There's so many potencies. Krishna is the basis of them. Krishna is inseparable from his potencies as sunshine is inseparable from sun. So this fits into the theme. I'm going to say it a few times in the course of today's discussion. It's going back to the first verse, the governing Paribhasha Sutra of the whole book. But we're hearing now the description of the world, or the topmost abode, Krishna Loka. And Krishna is the diamond at the center, who is the shelter and the source of emanation of all potencies. And all other subject matters are going to be either expansions of Krishna or expansions of Krishna's potencies in different realms. He's the cause of all causes. We'll hear of causes and effects, but Krishna is the cause of all causes. He's the cause of those causes that cause other effects, that become causes that cause other effects, and so forth. He's at the center of everything. He is the absolute truth. In medium size, approachable for our service. I wanted to say something further in response to Nanda Suta's question about that blue portion that in between each of the petals of the abodes of the gopis there was Kleem and Kleem and Kleem. Because Jiva Goswami spends a large amount of his commentary on verse 4 about the meaning of Kleem. It's Radha Krishna. In seed form, Radha Krishna. And Kleem in the mantra, in this hexagonal mantra, is at the center, because Radha and Krishna are at the center. Kleem also appears in a number of other places in that yantra that we viewed yesterday. And my reply yesterday was, why not? But now, even more specifically, here's why. Because this depiction of the whirl and the petals, it's the abode of Krishna and the abode of Krishna's associates. And Krishna's pastimes take place in those areas. And so I was thinking about this when we went to Vrindavan. And some of you may have been to Unshagaon. It's one of my favorite places in Vrindavan for a variety of reasons. But that's one of the abodes of the gopis, specifically Lalita Devi's abode. And so that's one of the petals. And from the rooftop of Unshagaon, you can see 3 miles that way is another one of the petals, the abode of Sudevi. And then you can see Varsana in the distance, and on the other side of that Jaipur temple, Varsana, is Chiksoli, another one of Chitra Devi's residences, and Tunga Devi, and Tunga Vidya, and Vishaka. And so from that rooftop, one can see these petals, the abodes of the gopis, these principal gopis. And then in the vicinity are their manjari assistants and their abodes. So this is what's depicted in the pinkish or reddish pinkish flower, and in between there's Radha and Krishna, because the pastimes of Radha and Krishna take place in all of those places. The abode of Radha and Krishna is at the center, but the place of their pastimes are all over in Braja. Just like from the rooftop of Unchagaon, the abode of Lalita Devi, there's a hill called Saki Giri Parvat, where Radha and Krishna would regularly perform pastimes. So there's one of the claims. And it's even specifically Krishna. There's depressions in the hilltop, shaped like bowls, directly in rows, that is described, where the cowherd boys would have their lunch, eating out of those bowls. That's a depression in the giri, or the hill, at Saki Giri Parvat, etc., etc., etc. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna take place all over. And that's what's being described in these verses, is the place of Krishna's residence, the place of the residence of the associates of Krishna, and the places of Radha and Krishna's intimate pastimes in Braja. So Radha Krishna, they're everywhere. And one other reference, I read it yesterday, so I'm not going to read it again today, but in Adi Leela, chapter 5, actually I will read it again, it's very nice. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, this is verses 17 and 18 of Adi 5. Shri Gokula, the highest of all, is also called Braja, Goloka, Svetadweep, and Vrindavan. Like the transcendental body of Lord Krishna, Gokula is all-pervading, infinite, and supreme. It expands both above and below without any restriction. So there's the why not answer. Without any restriction. Radha and Krishna are throughout the whole of Braja, although their principal place of residence may be, as indicated, at the center of the corolla. The love of Radha and Krishna pervades all of, and their pastimes pervade all of Braja. And so now let's review. We're ready for the next verse. So we can chant this next verse together. This is a long one. Oops. So we can chant together. Chatur ashram tad parita shweta dvik apyam adbhutam chatur ashram chatur murtesh chatur dhamma chatushkritam chatur bi purushartaischa chatur bir hetu bir ritam shulayar dasha bir anandham urdhvo dig vidikshri api ashtabir nirabir jushtam ashtibi siddhibistata Manu rupaischa darshabhir dikpalai paritovritam shamayar goraischa raktaischa shuklaischa paridharshabhai shobitam shaktivistabhir adbhutabhi samantata. So it's a long verse, So it's going to be a long description of a long verse. Here's the translation, I'll read. The surrounding external plane of Gokula is described in this verse. This is that white area surrounding the lotus. That is part of Gokula or Goloka. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Shvetadvip surrounding the outskirts of Gokula. Shvetadvip is divided into 4 parts on all sides, as you see in the diagram, upper, lower, left, and right. Those 4 areas, the abodes of the Chaturvyuha, are depicted. The abode of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These 4 divided abodes are enveloped by the 4-fold human requirements, such as piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And also by the 4 Vedas, namely Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, which deal with the mantra, and which are the bases of achievements of the 4-fold mundane requirements. I thought it was Vishuddha Sattva. What are the 4-fold human requirements doing there? Let's carry on. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir, that's up and down. The 8 directions are decorated with the 8 jewels of Maha, Padma, Padma, Shankha, Makra, Kachapa, Mukunda, Kunda, and Nila. There are 10 protectors, or dikpals, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra. The associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red, and white, and the extraordinary potencies bearing the names Vimala, etc., shine on all sides. So, as stated, it's mysterious. And we'll see if we can unpack the mystery a little bit. There's the translation. So, we'll go through these one by one, and it will start with the abodes of the Chaturvyuha. So, please bear in mind, we're speaking of the outer region. Basically, this means Mathura and Dwarka. As you see in that, up on the screen up here, those colored portions, at least the way the artists depicted it, Mathura and Dwarka are in that perimeter region. In between is also Jagannath Puri. Yeah, so that's just the artist's rendering. We don't need to visualize or conceptualize. The mantra, the yantra that I've shown you doesn't say like that. So it's just in that region outside. That's what's important. In his Krishna Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami discusses exactly this. After describing, he says, after describing the places where the Lord enacts his transcendental Braja Leela, he writes, there are many places on this earth planet where the Supreme Lord enjoyed various pastimes. These places are actually situated in the Vaikuntha world. Now, if we look at our chart on the left, the Vaikuntha world is right in the middle, Haridam, and above that is Ayodhya, in that kind of little yellow area. And then above that is Golokadam. and Svetadweep is part of the Golokadam position. So here, at least in Krishna Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami, consistent with Sanatana Goswami, is indicating Mathura and Dwarka, which are within Goloka, have some, in fact, strong aspects of the mood of Vaikuntha, the mood of opulence, particularly Dwarka, but to some extent also Mathura. So Jiva Goswami is saying these places, these abodes, are like Vaikuntha, or like exhibiting majesty and opulence, where that and that's the mood of the devotees there. He goes on. These places are actually situated in the Vaikuntha world. They are, 1, beyond the touch of the material energy. All of them. Because the material energy is down below. Down below is the river Viraja, and on the other side of the river Viraja is the material energy, and on this side of the river Viraja is the spiritual energy, the spiritual position, the abode of the Supreme Lord. So each of these places, they're beyond the touch of the material energy. And they're also eternal. That is to say, when that area down below is destroyed, they're not destroyed. There may be pastime places of the Lord within that field of the material energy. That's also not destroyed. They're eternal. As on the other side of the river Viraja, they're not destroyed. They're eternal. The third, he says, is they're uncommon, which is like what we were describing. We shouldn't make the mistake of imposing material conceptions on that which is not material. We shouldn't think of Krishna's place of pastimes as material, as we might think of something that's common and of this world. Although it may be in this world, they're not of this world, they're uncommon. And 4, they are the eternal abodes of the personality of Godhead. The description of these holy tirthas is found in various Vedic literatures. So tirthas, meaning a place of pilgrimage, a place where Krishna performs his pastimes, and one may go there for purification, because it's transcendental. It's non-different than the upper region from which those places the Lord makes his appearance and manifests. His transcendental abode is eternally present here in this realm also, like an embassy. And then he concludes, the Lord's many favorite cities that rest on the earth also exist in Vaikuntha, so that the Lord may enjoy different pastimes in them. So he likes yada yada hi dharma shaglani bhavati. From time to time he descends. Srajam yaham. And he descends in those abodes. Sometimes people ask this question, especially I get asked it a lot in China. How come all these places of Krishna's appearances take place in India? Why not, at least 1 or 2 in China, or forget Japan, but, China, and maybe some other places. And one answer that Prabhupada has given is that Krishna is not attracted to appear where people are so grossly impious. He's attracted to appear where his devotees are. And those places where his devotees are largely in India, and largely in India because the places for their purification are in India. So it's just the Lord's arrangement. Punya Bhumi, the land of India, is very special because of the Lord's places of pastimes and the tendency, although Kali Yuga is rapidly modifying all of that, the tendency for pious activity, the tendency for devotion to Krishna. The tendency like that is very natural. Of course, there's other parts of the world where attraction for Krishna is very natural and very easy. Without descriptions from the course of my travel, I've seen it. It's just magical. They're very, very easily, readily attracted to Krishna. That makes a place of Krishna's pastime. Because of that attraction for Krishna, there's kirtan and there's devotional service, and Krishna is attracted and Krishna comes. It's like, this is one of the 7 stated purposes of ISKCON, is penned by Srila Prabhupada, to establish places of pastimes of Krishna. Well, Krishna can do that, he can appear. But if the devotees engage in devotional service and chant his holy name and establish temples like this, where regularly Krishna is worshipped and dressed and decorated and fed and chanted and glorified and so forth, makes this a place of Krishna's pastimes. Same thing as what goes on in the spiritual world. Establishing temples. But Prabhupada wrote, places of pastimes of Krishna. And you don't have to have a temple. You can just have wonderful kirtan. That's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's method. So you're still on this, what's shown on the screen here, the abodes of the 4 Chaturvyuha personalities. These personalities are expansions of Krishna, who's at the center. So Krishna expands as Vasudeva, and then the other Chaturvyuha members similarly expand. Balaram expands as Sankarshan, and Pradyumna and Aniruddha are also manifest. If we have time at the end, I'll read from Varaha Purana a description of the abodes, the trees and the palaces and the places and the avenues and the parks and the abodes of the Chaturvyuha. Just as we're given lots of nice description about Krishna's Vrindavan, there's the abodes of these 4 Chaturvyuhas described in Varaha Purana. In Rupa Goswami's Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Laghu Bhagavatamrita is it's a description of the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. It's like a commentary on Canto 1, Chapter 3. Canto 1, Chapter 3, especially the bulk of it, the beginning part through most of it, it's a response, it's Sutta Goswami's response to the sage's question, please describe those forms of the Lord as they appear in this world. Laghu Bhagavatamrita is a commentary on that. It's just a description of the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world, and he goes through it 4 times over. Verse by verse he comments on chapter 3, and then he goes back and then he divides the categories and he discusses them once again, and he does it again and he does it again. It's exhaustive. It's very beautiful and eloquent and fascinating and charming, and some of these charts, especially the one on the left, draws from Laghu Bhagavatamrita. So here's Rupa Goswami's description of Vasudeva of the Svetadweep area. Here's what he writes. Laghu Bhagavatamrita. The Krishna known as Yadukumar, Yadu dynasty resides where? Dwarka. So Krishna in Dwarka is Yadukumar, is Vasudeva Krishna in the outer region, the Svetadweep region. He is different from the Krishna who is the son of Nanda Maharaj. Non-different and different. Here's the difference. Yadukumar Krishna manifests his pastimes in the cities of Mathura and Dwarka. But Krishna, the son of Maharaj Nanda, never at any time leaves Vrindavan. That's Govinda, if you remember from the first day. They're the same, but Govinda specifically is with his flute. And Krishna doesn't carry his flute when he goes to Mathura and Dwarka. He has other paraphernalia. Vrindavan Krishna always has 2 arms. He never has 4 arms. He eternally enjoys pastimes with a certain gopi. That's a quote by Rupa Goswami from Yamala Tantra. Continuing, Lagu Bhagavatamrita. In his prakat form, remember that term? Prakat and prakat? In his prakat form, Lord Krishna goes to the Yadu's capital, Mathura. Concealing his real identity as the son of the Vraja's king, he shows himself as Lord Vasudeva. Vasudeva sometimes has 2 arms and sometimes 4 arms, and is dependent upon the love or the mood of love of those who he interacts with. Krishna discloses, he reciprocates with their love. He discloses a form suitable for their love. Continuing, this is still Lagu Bhagavatamrita, Rupa Goswami. Just as, this is important, listen carefully, just as Lord Vasudeva is the expansion of Lord Krishna, his queens in Dwaraka are expansions of Krishna's gopis. This is an important part of Rupa Goswami's message. It's esoteric, but it's an important part of his message. This is explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. This is now no longer Rupa Goswami. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains this in his commentary on Bhagavatam 10:59-43, wherein he quotes Kartik Mahatmya section of the Padma Purana. And he quotes the Sanskrit. Those who were, quote, those who were daughters of cowherds in their early youth became royal princesses in their maturity, unquote. They expanded. This detail is described. They expanded themselves because they're expansions of Radha, and they expanded themselves to participate with Krishna in his pastimes in Dwaraka, because they're to assist Krishna in his pastimes. As Krishna expands himself as Vasudeva, they expand themselves to be his wives. And in Braja, they're gopis. In Dwaraka, they're wives. You follow? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur adds, therefore, just as the Lord of Dwaraka, Vasudeva Krishna, is a plenary expansion of the supremely complete Lord of Śrī Vrindavan, so his principal queens are full expansions of his supremely complete pleasure potencies, the gopis. It's a deep mystery. And if you really want to scratch your head, read Rupa Goswami's 2 dramas, Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. But an essential thread that runs through that is what I just read. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur confirming. From Padma Purana, it's not he made it up, or that would be a cute way to explain things. It's scripturally based, but he just goes very, very deeply into the subject. I'll just share this detail with you. It's Rupa Goswami was composing a drama about Krishna and Krishna's pastimes. Just as Jiva Goswami is giving his commentary on Krishna and the abode of Krishna, Rupa Goswami wanted to write a drama. Not fiction drama, but a drama about Krishna's pastimes. And as he was composing that drama, in writing, as well in his mind, conceiving of the drama, as a literary person will do before they write, he then received some instruction from Satyabhama, confirmed by Lord Chaitanya. It should be 2 dramas. Krishna in Vrindavan and Krishna outside of Vrindavan. Lord Chaitanya told him, don't take Krishna out of Vrindavan. He's always in Vrindavan. He didn't give a detail, he just make 2 dramas. He didn't say make 2 dramas, he just don't take Krishna out of Vrindavan. Govinda, Gopinath, they stay in Vrindavan. I hear you're composing a drama. Don't take Govinda out of Vrindavan. That's all he said. So Rupa Goswami then made 2 dramas. When we visited Raval, which is the birthplace of Srimati Radharani and where she lived in the early part of her life, as Krishna lived in Gokul at the palace of Nanda and Jasoda, in Gokul, not Nandagram, but on the eastern side of the river Jamuna. There's a parallel description found in Lalita Madhava Vidagdha Madhava, of a very amazing appearance of Radharani, different than the one that we hear at Raval. Without all the detail, Radha and Chandravali, by the arrangement of the Yogamaya potency, were taken from the arms or the chest carrying the 2 children, the 2 daughters, Chandravali and Radharani. Putana came and kidnapped them. Before that, they were taken to become the daughters of the Vindhya Hills. That's correct. Then Putana came and kidnapped from the Vindhya Hills, and as Putana was carrying them away, flying through the air as witches can do on broomsticks, she was flying through the air. Vindhya engaged his brahmanas in creating a curse that would kill the kidnappers of her daughters, his daughters. Putana became very afraid, knowing that this curse was chasing after her. So one of the daughters, she dropped in a river in the kingdom of Bhishmaka. Who's that? Rukmini's father. That's Chandravali. The plot thickens, it just goes on and on. Radharani later was placed somewhere, and Purnamasi said, I came and then entrusted Radharani to Vrishabhanu and said, here's your daughter back. Very, very mysterious. That's how Radharani, one of the presentations of how Radharani became the daughter of Vrishabhanu. But then later, Purnamasi says, these gopis, and she describes other things with gopis, they expanded themselves to become queens of Krishna and Dwaraka. Purnamasi is Yogamaya. And she's speaking to Gargi, who is the daughter of Sandipani Muni, and Gargi says, how did you learn all this? She said, I heard it from Narada Muni, my spiritual master. And on this basis, this is my devotion to Radha and Krishna. And Gargi says, my father cannot be wrong. He's said all these things also, but I can't understand it. So don't worry, we can't understand it. The daughter of Sandipani Muni can't understand it. She said, but one day maybe I will understand. So the gopis expanded themselves to become, those 16,100 princesses? That's the gopis. They desired to have Krishna as their husband. So in one of the multiple leelas in which Krishna arranges to become their husband, they expand themselves and become Krishna's husband. That's Lalita Madhava. Excuse me, Vidagdha Madhava. Lalita Madhava is Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka. Excuse me for this detour, I'm going away from Brahma Samhita, but it's nice. In Dwarka, Krishna has such love for Vrindavan. Uddhava, recognizing that love that Krishna has for Vrindavan, he has an idea. He decides to create a drama of Krishna's performing pastimes in Vrindavan with Krishna, Vasudeva Krishna in the audience. So it's a drama within a drama within a drama. And as Vasudeva Krishna sees Krishna in Vrindavan on the stage, he becomes so attracted, like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the mood of Radha, so attracted. Even Vasudeva Krishna becomes attracted to Brajendra Nandana Krishna. And he describes his attraction. And he starts running for the stage with his arms outstretched, and Uddhava holds him around the waist. No, it's just a drama. It's just a drama. And the final scene of Lalita Madhava, the final scene is in Dwarka. Krishna realizes that he's Krishna in Vrindavan. Satyabhama realizes that she's Radharani, and they get married in Dwarka. And Radharani asks, Krishna says, Radharani, please take some benediction from me. So she asks for two. One is something like, always be compassionate upon your devotees and display your wonderful pastimes so that they can become satisfied and filled with their love and devotion for you. And the other is, please always keep the gopis, us gopis, in your intimate association. Krishna says, so be it. Then there's a question that's raised. I think it's Radharani that raised. Someone raises the question. Says, how is this possible? We're in Dwarka. And Radha and Krishna are in Dwarka. So what's going on? Like we might wonder, what's going on? And the Yogamaya potency in Dwarka, who is commonly called Subhadra, but in this case it's Ekanangsa, she comes rushing onto the stage and pulls back a curtain and shows it's actually Vrindavan. Figure that one out, huh? These expansions of Krishna are to satisfy the particular type of love. And the love of Vrindavan is very special. We're going to hear a little bit about that from Bhaktisiddhanta in his purport. Now we're hearing about the outer region, the Sweta Dweep region, where Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha reside. Back to Brahma Samhita, the important thing for us to understand out of all of this, besides, wow, that was interesting, is Krishna's at the center. He's the source of all potencies. He's the source of emanation of all potencies. And everything is an expansion of his potencies or himself. So as we're describing Sweta Dweep, it's Krishna's expanding himself and Krishna's various potencies. That's all. And it's to reciprocate with the love of the residents who have that particular disposition. And when this is all done, we're going to go in the next class after breakfast to down in that lower region where it's the causal ocean, Mahavishnu. It's another mood. And then Krishna is reciprocating with, or Mahavishnu is reciprocating with those personalities, the living entities who are within his transcendental body at the time of cosmic annihilation, and his desire for them to come once again to the upper region, on the other side of the river Viraja. But all of that, just to repeat, it's just an expansion of Krishna, because that's what Mahavishnu is, or who Mahavishnu is, and Krishna's potencies that have their position in the spiritual world, and they expand themselves to accommodate the desires of the living entities who are, in this realm, rebellious. But it's his potencies, like Maya Dyakshena Prakriti, Suyate Sacharacharam from Bhagavad Gita. It's all under Krishna's Adyaksha. He's overseeing. He does so through his personal expansions, because he's fully occupied with enjoying pastimes in Braja. But to accommodate, it's just a loving exchange between living entities and the Supreme Lord. That's the world where we are now, and it's the Vaikuntha realm, it's the Ayodhya realm, it's the Svetadvipa realm, it's the Vraja realm, and we're being encouraged by Jiva Goswami and Lord Brahma and our acharyas to focus our attention on Krishna and Vrindavan. But all the other realms are also Krishna and Krishna's energies. Prabhupada said it this way. There's only two things. There's Krishna and there's Krishna's expansions, or Krishnas. There's Krishna and there's Krishnas, and there's not a third thing in all of creation. There's no void in creation. Sometimes, out of frustration, there's a void philosophy that's generated. And there's no such thing. There's only Krishna and Krishnas, and not a third thing. Okay, well that's first on our list here of the things that are described in text number 5. Also mentioned in text number 5 are the 4 Vedas, Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva Veda. That may be surprising. Probably should be surprising, because these 4 Vedas, they're the basis of karmakanda. Rituals that person who wish for material elevation and fulfillment of material desires, they approach. They worship the worship of various devas through different procedures and rituals and mantras, so they can achieve fulfillment in this world and achieve a higher destination after. That's commonly what the 4 Vedas are down here in this realm. But in the Goloka realm, in Svetadvipa, they're only doing one thing. They're just glorifying Krishna. They're just glorifying Krishna, because that's the purpose of all the Vedas, isn't it? Vedaishtasayar vair aham eva vedyo. That's the purpose of the Vedas. So in Svetadvipa, that's all they're doing. Nothing else. Just glorifying Krishna in various wonderful ways. The penultimate, or the perfection of the Vedas, is found in Svetadvipa. And the fruits, piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, or dharma, artha, kama, moksha. One might wonder why. Why is that going on? But the examples are given by Jiva Goswami in the form of piety, the performance of duties in their perfect form. Consider Nanda Maharaj. He's in the Vaishya community, and he's doing his duties of taking care of the cows. We can even say Krishna's cows. Perfectly. He's perfectly executing his dharma. And as far as artha, wealth, the treasury of Nanda Maharaj is fully utilized for one purpose only: the service of Krishna, the happiness of Krishna. Perfect stage of artha. And kama, we'll hear this a little bit later, but in this section, Jiva Goswami describes, on this realm there's kama of the kind where one desires one's own sense gratification. In this case, it's intense desire for the satisfaction of the senses of Krishna. Most perfectly exhibited by the gopis. Not a tinge or trace of anything selfish or independent enjoyment. It's entirely the satisfaction of Krishna's senses. And liberation is already included. Liberation is as standing at the doorway. But all the beings, the residents of Goloka, in both the Vraja and the Svetadweep regions, they're already liberated. In their perfect stage, as Prabhupada calls it in the Bhagavatam, ultimate liberation. Pure love of God. Not just Sayuja. Pure love of God. And the 10 tridents that are in the 10 directions. This is for keeping people unqualified out. Similarly with the Digpals, they're mentioned also. But the 10 tridents, a trident is a spear with 3 prongs. And the indication of Jiva Goswami is these 3 prongs indicate the 3 modes of nature and the 3 phases of time. Yesterday there was some discussion about time. So those that are still affected by and interested in the modes of nature or the phases of time, the tridents keep them out. And the Digpals, with their protectors of the Dham, specifically, here's Jiva Goswami's description from Krishna Sandarbha of this little section. A passage from Sri Harivamsa explains, beyond heaven lies the transcendental realm, which is inhabited by the personified great sages and the Lord's personal associates. There can be found the ultimate destination of Lord Shiva and self-realized souls who merge into the Lord's Brahmajyoti effulgence. Above it is the planet of the Surabhi cows, guarded by the Sadhya deities, these Digpals. O Krishna, situated amid an infinite spiritual sky, that planet is supreme and all-expansive. So Jiva Goswami gives his explanation that these Sadhya demigods indicates not like the demigods of this created realm where they oversee the affairs of the universe. These are prototype demigods. That's Bhaktisiddhanta's description. So in Svetadweep there are Sadhya demigods or Digpals, and their service is to keep unqualified people out. They're guardians of the Dham. So those that are attracted by the modes of nature, those that are influenced by, even to some slight remaining degree, by the phases of time, they're, Jiva Goswami writes, they're pierced asunder by the tridents placed in 10 directions and prohibited from entering by the Digpals. So if you want to go to Vrindavan, to enter into Krishna's abode in Vrindavan, have to be qualified. And in the purport, I'm not going to go into it, but in detail, Bhaktisiddhanta starts making lists of those that don't make it. The yogis, the gyanis, ashtangis. He says people who are less forward in their intelligence, who are attracted by various mantras, the gift-giving demigods, Bhaktisiddhanta calls. You want something, very well, here's the something you wish. So those that have that kind of interest or attraction, they it's good news. When we go to the spiritual, the Goloka realm, we're not going to have all this confusion. They're not going to have people that have like egos and quarrel with each other, and you can't enter if you have that disposition. And so, but there are places of residence for each of those personalities, and I'm not going to read it. It's very nice. You can read it in his purport, Bhaktisiddhanta's purport to this verse. But there are places of residences for those that are not so qualified as the residents of Vaikuntha are qualified. And then he makes reference, if you have your book, Śrī Brahma-sam. Well, gee, I can't find. Oh, there it is. His paragraphs, of course, are really long. It's towards the very end of the first paragraph. These page numbers, it's 14 and 15, the bottom of page 14. He's making reference to chapters that are found in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, where there's 5 types of devotees. The other lists are non-devotees, but 5 types of devotees. They can enter Vaikuntha, or they can enter Mathura and Dwarka, but they cannot enter that central region, Braja, where Radha and Krishna reside, and the gopis reside, and the residents of Vrindavan reside. So there's 5 stages. Jnana Bhakta, devotees where the devotion is actuated by knowledge. An example that's given is Bharat Maharaj, devotion that's activated by knowledge. And then there's a certain destination for such personalities. And then above that is Shuddha Bhakta, where the practice of, it's a long section, I could read the long section, but I'll just make it simple. By practice of sadhana bhakti, which we're doing, and one who becomes perfect at the practice of sadhana bhakti can attain Shuddha Bhakti. And an example of that is Ambarish Maharaj, and the destination of Ambarish Maharaj is Vaikuntha. And above that is Prema Bhakta, devotees that are imbued with pure devotion. An example given in Brihat Bhagavatamrita is Hanuman. He's activated just devotion to opportunity for service to Krishna, or to Ram, excuse me. He's fully enlivened. And so you see on the chart above Vaikuntha realm, that's the one that's in blue. Above that one is the smaller region, Ayodhya. Above the Vaikuntha region is Ayodhya, but still, in one sense, within the Vaikuntha realm. Then, the devotees that are actuated by pure love, intimate association with the Supreme Lord, like the Pandavas. And where do the Pandavas reside? Hastinapur. And then above that, the devotees impelled by overwhelming love, who serve the majesty of Godhead. That's in Dwarka, the Yadu dynasty, where Vasudeva Krishna resides. So the point is, there are residences where the Lord reciprocates with the particular love of his devotee. We could think of it in terms of, Krishna shows a particular form and devotees are attracted to that particular form. But another way, from the other side, it's devotees have a particular type of love. The Lord shows a form to them to correspond with their particular type of love, and there's an abode, a place where they serve Krishna, worship Krishna, love Krishna. But above all, this Śrī Brahma-Samhita is indicating the topmost of all is Goloka. And what is the nature of that topmost region? The intimacy of love is so profound that the majesty of the Supreme Lord is overlooked. So now we'll go on, because what I just said connects with these next items. Extraordinary potencies bearing the name Vimala, etc. Now we don't normally hear about Vimala, etc. Although the name given to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at the time of his birth was Bimala Prasad. Now there's Bimala Devi in this material realm, but there's extraordinary potencies in the Svetadweep realm. I'm going to a little scriptural reference in that regard. Found in Hari Bhakti Vilas in relation to deity worship. There's particularly 9 potencies, and also spoken by Krishna to Uddhava. When Krishna is describing to Uddhava the process of deity worship of him, he mentions these same 9 potencies. In the verse it's Vimala, etc., and here's the 9 potencies. You can look it up, it's in Uddhava Gita, 10th canto, 11th canto. Vimala, Utkarshini, Jnana, Kriya, Yoga, Pravi, Satya, Ishana, and Anugraha. So these are potencies that detail isn't given, so I can't expand or further explain. But they're potencies that are specifically appropriate in deity worship. And they're found in Svetadweep. And so there's extraordinary opulences and potencies found in that Svetadweep region. Later we're going to hear again about Mahavishnu and his abode, and because Krishna and Arjuna go there, remember, in search for the sons of the Brahmana, they go to the abode of Mahavishnu. So when we get there, I'll read the description, because each personality has his abode, each of the forms of the Lord, and then there's the situation in those abodes, and there's these opulences that exist in the realm of Mahavishnu, as they exist in Svetadweep. They are there for persons who are attracted to opulences and potencies. Also mentioned is the 8 jewels. We don't commonly hear about the 8 jewels, but reference for them is found in the 10th canto, chapter 50, where Dwarka is being described. And in that description of Dwarka, to honor Krishna, Kuvera gave his most precious jewels to Krishna. You know, like the Shamantaka jewel was, Krishna wanted Satyajit to give it to Ugrasena because it should be the property of the king. But Kuvera was a devotee of Krishna, so he gave his greatest treasure, these 8 mystical opulences, to Krishna to reside in Dwarka, named Padma, Mahapadma, Matsya Kurma, Audaka, Nila, Mukunda, and Shankha. So again, the point is, those that are attracted to opulence, you'll find it abundant in Dwarka. It's where the Aishvarya is even greater than that found in Vaikuntha, the opulence of Dwarka. When during the summer, the children, there's a Gita camp for children, and so one year they covered chapter 10, the opulences of the Absolute. So one of the projects to help the children appreciate the opulences of the Absolute is they read the section on Dwarka, and then they built a Dwarka city. One of the devotees was an architect. So she made a plan whereby the kids could make cutout things and styrofoam this and that, and made a huge Dwarka city. It was so fantastic that they showcased it at different schools. When they were at schools, were having their appreciation, cultural diversity. They would focus on India. So they put it